with which you're resonating the majority of the time. So just for simplicity's sake, let's call one timeline more fear-based and the other more love-based. And one isn't higher than the other. It's simply they're resonating at a different frequency. So the fear-based timeline would be more a sense of being controlled. It's more technological. It's more synthetic. It's more complicated. There's a greater sense of separation and polarity and judgment in that. There's a greater sense of fighting for survival. And it really is just much more complex, I think. There's an external reference point to external authority figures. And you may be feeling in that timeline more issues around censorship and free speech. And I think in that timeline in particular, there's going to be a real explosion in AI, although that's going to be really across the board. And I just suggest that you use discernment with AI, really think about the consciousness that it is coming from. And I think another thing is whether it is profit-based or not, because I think there could be some amazing uses for AI where there is no profit motive, where it's simply developed for the good of humanity and the good of the earth. And that will develop over time. I think robots will become much more common, not only as workers in repetitive industries, but also as home helps. It's kind of one step beyond the Alexa. I think we're going to have robotic home helps, robotic cleaners, robotic companions. And that will be much more, they will be much more available to us, but again, use your discernment with that. The love, let's call it the love timeline, is much more internally referenced, that you are very aware that you're living from the inside out, not the outside in. There's a greater sense of sovereignty, spiritual sovereignty. It's much more natural, organic, heart-based. There's a coherence about it, a simplicity, it feels connected. It's a much greater sense of oneness, of connecting to all that is. So very broadly, I think those are the two timelines. And the love timeline is much quieter, actually. It's kind, it's humble, it's focused on service to others. How can I help you? Care for all living beings and care for the earth. And there's a sense of embodiment of these higher light codes that are coming in. So it isn't a place that we go to. It isn't a level necessarily that we reach. It's a sense of embodying these new cosmic and light codes coming in for us. And the people on the other timeline probably won't be able to see this at all. It'll be quite invisible because in a sense it is much quieter and less visible. So that will just seem like fairyland. You know, it's not real, it's not possible. Because whichever timeline you are on, you will get evidence of your reality emerging in every moment. Because we always get evidence of our belief systems and our timelines. But I do believe that since the Capricorn solstice, we've entered more of a harmonic split, let's say, higher harmonic, as the higher harmonic frequencies are coming in, and we are able to hold more light. Many people are rising into this higher harmonic frequency and a sense of co-creating with these higher harmonic frequencies and creating this strong, invisible architecture of light from which new realities will be birthed. Everything comes from energy. And this really, I do believe absolutely that the Capricorn solstice was the tipping point. And we've now entered a whole new episode for humanity that is really the very beginning of the birth of what is called Homo Luminous. that we become beings of light in a bigger way. Now, this is obviously going to take some time. It's not going to happen in a day, a week, a month, but that is now the direction in which we're headed. And that really comes from heart coherence, calm, peace, stillness. These are powerful tools. They may seem very humble, but they are very powerful tools in moving towards New Earth, which, remember, is an internal state, not an external reference point. So, as I've always said, just make your state of being your absolutely top priority, because the way out is actually the way in, as others have said. And I believe that that other fear-based timeline will diminish in numbers as we move through 2026. It will diminish in numbers because there are going to be more people migrating from that into this love-based timeline through a series of evolutionary waves, which are going to come in 2026. Dr. David Clements has talked about 6 to 7 evolutionary waves, and they may perhaps link with the probability peaks I'm seeing in the astrology, which I'll talk about later in this video. But also I believe that quite a lot of people on that fear-based timeline will actually decide to exit the earth. They'll go on to a different incarnation. So actually one of the most powerful things you can do, and it's all for free and we can all do it at home, is to sit in stillness. Just drop into your breath. Drop into the 0 point. The 0 point isn't empty, it's absolutely jam-packed with potential, energetic potential. And that really is one of your most powerful tools as we move into 2026, where you get a sense of connecting to the divine, to source, to all other living beings. So it's going inwards to recognize that all of life we can connect to from there, because everything, all living beings are just an expression of they're all divine fractals of source, all unique divine fractals of source. We people are that, the planets are that, the trees are that, the plants, the birds, the animals. We are all unique expressions of one consciousness. And we only really get a sense of that, I think, if we can drop into that still point, that 0 point, and then everything becomes available. So going in order to apparently connect out, but actually everything is an inside job, everything is inside of us. And so just to get a sense of that, you can go onto the meditation page of my website, pamgregory.com, and there's some 15-minute free meditations there, but there's also something I love personally, the yogic baby belly breath, and I've described it there, and also just given you a 10-minute version with some wave sea sounds in the background. And just to do that will drop you into heart coherence. It's incredibly simple. You can drop into that very quickly, and that can become a daily default for you. But whatever you do, whether it's candle gazing, meditation, hugging trees, sitting in nature, chanting, dancing, whatever it is, I would, if you haven't got it already, start to develop a daily spiritual practice that will really serve you well in 2026, because, and particularly heart coherence, which creates coherence in every cell of our body, and that's then what we broadcast out to the world, is going to create this bedrock of stability, of connection and stability. So when the old structures continue to collapse at greater speed, and we see a lot of chaos out there, and the more you are in the fear-based timeline, the more consumed you may be by that chaos, because it's an energetic fragmentation of the underlying energy that is no longer going to support those old structures. As we move to these higher frequencies that are love-based, there simply isn't the energy to support those old structures. So it may appear on that other timeline to be very, very chaotic, and it's becoming very fragmented and just falling apart. And from the love timeline, you may be able to witness that, but not feel consumed and engulfed by it. So be aware of that. So to see ourselves as lighthouses, holding strong, holding energetic stability, will serve us well. And there's a feeling of connection, all of the lighthouses across the world connecting with each other with this sense of heart coherence and a real sense of joy, love, and purpose as we move forwards. So calmness, peace, compassion, these are all the ingredients for that new earth embodiment. So we are going to increasingly navigate by feeling, not thinking. It's going to be heart-based, not head-based. You know, we've lived through the information age, we've lived through so much social media of Twitter and X and TikTok, where we've been encouraged almost to have a very short attention span and scroll and, you know, pick up snippets of information all the time. And that's been very mind-dominated. But it can create a kind of mental jazzing up, which doesn't serve us well if we're thinking of keeping calm and stillness and stability. That kind of jazzing of the mind is going to increase even more potentially in 2026. Uranus moving into Gemini on the 26th of April, Pluto in Aquarius. The potential is for more mental instability if we get caught up in the chaos of the collapse. An even bigger reason to come back to the heart, come back to judging things by feeling and intuition, and get out of the head. Hug trees, bare feet on the grass, grounding, all of those things. The divine feminine, and Kelly Kolodny has done some exquisite channeling on this, particularly around the Capricorn, running into the Capricorn solstice, just amazing. We have divine feminine energies coming in more strongly, and whatever your gender, this is to do with a feeling of love, yin versus yang, receptivity, connectedness, relatedness, nurturing, compassion. It's relational, very beautiful, and that's going to better balance the imbalance we've had with the dominance of the masculine. And so we are going to see, as we move through 2026, a much more equal balance between divine feminine and divine masculine, which is going to be wonderful. So 2026 is going to be fast moving, not slowing up anytime soon. And that's partly because linear time is going to increasingly warp and dissolve. And I talked a lot about this with Saturn in Pisces, Saturn being linear time, Pisces dissolves. And so we've felt this already, but that is going to get stronger. That feeling of time warps, either time is moving incredibly quickly or time is moving incredibly slowly, that it doesn't seem to have the same consistency as it's had in the past. And that is because we are moving out of 3D reality. Because when you get into higher timelines, higher frequencies, that 3D linear time just doesn't exist. You know, if you're in a deep meditation, if you're at 0 point, if you're deeply in a creative project, you can just lose that sense of space and time. That's what we're moving towards much more. If you have any planets between or angles between 0 and 5 degrees of any sign, I would say. I did a video a few months ago on looking at people who had any planets or angles between 0 and 2 degrees of their signs, and that was very much for 2025. I'll put the link for that below. but now the outer planets are starting to move on a little, so it's 0 to 5 degrees of any sign. They are going to be aspected one way or another by the outer planets, because all the outer planets through 2026 are going to be between 0 and 5 degrees. So you're going to be increasingly activated to some degree. And I think particularly people who have any planet or angle at 0 to 2 degrees of Aries are going to be called into some kind of new leadership position. And I don't mean leadership in terms of domination, top down, telling people what to do. It's just a sense of a bigger role, a bigger spiritual responsibility, and a bigger role that's potentially more influential in what we are calling New Earth. So, as you may know already, 2026 is a 1 year in numerology. 2025 was a 9 year, add 2 and 2 and 5, and you get 9, very much a year of endings. 2 and 2 and 6 is a 10 year, which numerologists refer to as a 1 year of new beginnings. We are going to see so many new beginnings in 2026. And by the end of this year, all of us, I believe, are going to be in a different place, one way or another. There's going to be so much change in 2026, way more than in 2025. And so really embrace that in terms of what new beginnings do you want to see in your life, whether it's just a state of being, whether it's a new job, a new relationship, a new home, a new geography, a new network of friends, whatever it is. Really start to commit to that as we go into 2026. Because once we get into even February, late February, March, it's really go time. As you will probably know as well, this is the year of, in Chinese astrology, which begins on the 17th of February. That's the Chinese New Year, which is smack on a very important solar eclipse, actually, which I'll come to in a moment. This is the year of the fire horse in Chinese astrology. So very different from 2025, the year of the wood snake, where there was so much shedding of the old skin, individually and collectively. The fire horse is about big jumps ahead, individually and collectively. Energy, passion, freedom is a big one. Horses don't like to be constrained. Freedom, independence, courage, bold moves, change, dynamism. It's auspicious, it's exhilarating. And there's a huge amount of innovation and creativity that we can really explore in 2026. We have a lot of fire energy. The outer planets are all in air and fire from late April, 26th of April, when Uranus moves into Gemini. And fire is, it can be literal fire, but it's creativity. It's really the fire, the passion of creativity. So again, use that well. So, as I say, we're moving from information to intuition, going to be much more guided by the heart. I think there will be huge developments in technology. Yes, AI, but also medical breakthroughs, free energy. There are going to be huge developments in aviation. We already have prototypes of the flying car. So, and I've actually seen these where individuals can literally just use a remote control, and they have a kind of almost like a hula hoop around them with fans in it, and then can use a remote control, and they literally just lift off the ground. Other individual flying vehicles have a body to it that you step into, like a smart car almost, but also they take off. So we're going to see an awful lot of things happening in our skies. And flying cars is definitely on the agenda for 2026 in a bigger way. I talked at great length since 2023 about we're going to see an awful lot more of the out there, to do with aviation, to do with reconnecting to our galactic families. And that's going to be really wonderful. But even 3i Atlas appearing with its 6 accompanying comets, I believe that is not only very beneficial for humanity, but it's just the very beginning. I think it's just the very beginning of many other interstellar objects coming into our solar system to activate what has been dormant for us and to take us back to the original blueprint of who we are meant to be as humanity, which is enormously exciting. So huge medical breakthroughs, technological breakthroughs. I think there's going to be a lot to do with longevity, anti-aging, boosting our health, a lot of biohacks coming in. And by biohacks, I mean kind of shortcuts to health and longevity that are based on food, supplements, exercise regimes. Could be things like red light therapy, light, sound, color therapy, all of those things. And as we move forwards, particularly with this, these flying cars, etc., I think, and David Clements talks about this, that transport will be conscious. It won't just be a vehicle. It will be a conscious living, flying thing. And we activate it via our own frequency. So we have to be at a certain frequency to connect to the vehicle and step into it and get it to operate. So huge developments in the technological area that are going to be very positive for us. As I say, all kinds of ways of creating energy that are free. We may ultimately just have a device, each of us in our house, that creates free energy for us. So we don't have to plug into failing power grids in the way that we do right now. And I do think that, as I mentioned earlier, that robots are going to become much more commonplace. They will greet us at the cinema and the theatre, they will do day-to-day routine tasks, and they will help you in your home, for those people who wish to have them. I'd find that slightly creepy, actually, but anyway, take your choice. Lee Harris, in his wonderful Looking Forward to 2026, has talked about the Z's, saying that this will be a very electrical year, and I absolutely agree with that. In Pluto in Aquarius, that's the sign to do with electricity. Uranus is the planet linked to electricity, moving into Gemini. It's going to be a very electrical year, and by that, that brings in speed. It also really makes us conscious that everything is energy and frequency. Everything. It always has been. We just haven't been very conscious of that. We're going to become much more conscious. We're going to become more aware of the degenerative effects of certain electrical equipment, computers, Wi-Fi, satellites, etc., and the effect it has on our systems. And equally, there will be further developments of regenerative technologies to help to protect us from the degenerative effects of these frequencies. We'll be much more aware and conscious of that, and wanting to live with regenerative technology and in places that are beautiful nature, where the earth just bare feet on the grass does that very quickly for us. So we'll become aware, much more conscious, that everything in life is a frequency match in our reality. It always has been. We'll just become much more aware of it. We will find ways to clean up our oceans and seas and land from all the toxicity and pollution very quickly with these new technologies. And that's starting to happen already. I believe that a new financial system, at least one and maybe more, will start to emerge in 2026 for sure, with a whole new infrastructure. The old infrastructure financially which we've known will collapse. I think we're close to that now. Uranus stays in Taurus until 26th of April, as I say, and particularly when it's at the anaretic degree, the very last degree of Taurus, I think we could see a lot of radical change, but potentially collapse in the old financial system. It can also bring in greater digitization. There is a push towards centralization, but also there are many other options for decentralized digital currencies, which you may be aware of. And so with the changes in the financial structure and the collapse of the old financial infrastructure, the collapse of the old order will continue all of this year, actually. Uranus is conjunct the fixed star Algol at 27 of Taurus. From now until early March, we will see many figures in the public eye exit, fall from grace. Whether that is celebrities, just people in the public eye, whether it's politicians and leaders, we're seeing this already, governments falling. Many more will continue to fall if they have not acted in integrity, honesty. We will see a lot of that happening. We will see a lot of shift towards society being based on grassroots up rather than top-down structure. And again, I've talked about that in huge detail, but information networks operating at the grassroots, like tree roots, a lot of very helpful information connecting people in various communities in a grassroots way of, again, ways to purify water, grow new food, connect with each other, etc. Our psychic sensitivity is going to continue to increase. People are already feeling this very strongly, and all of us will feel this. The clair senses are going to come online in a bigger way, whether that's clair cognizance, audience, sentience, whatever. Voyance, clairvoyance, we are going to feel that a lot more. More and more people are going to start to channel members of their galactic family, star beings, planets, trees, animals, plants. They're going to start to channel any living conscious being as we shift into a greater sense of our multidimensionality. And also, of course, as we become more multidimensional and we can shift between different, literally, dimensions, obviously that 3D linear time is not going to work. It's going to dissolve, and I think we'll shift much more, as well as being in the 0 point and recognizing the only power is now. We will also go back to the indigenous idea of time is cyclical, connected to the seasons of Earth, the seasons of nature. I think we will see a lot of very strong revolutionary energy in 2026. I mean, February is super strong with a lot of Aquarian energy in 2026, but we also have Pluto in Aquarius, all the way through till 2044. And we know from Rosie Finn's wonderful 20-year research project that just last year, Pluto moved out of bounds to the south. I'll put the link of my conversation with Rosie Finn below if you're not familiar with that. And that brings in, over the next 10 years, but it gets kind of more and more subdued, really. It's very strong in 2026, more revolutionary energy. And that reinforces the whole message of Pluto in Aquarius of power shifting to the people, away from top-down hierarchy, structure, elitism, inequality, towards a more horizontally based society. That's going to become much more apparent in 2026, began in 2025, much clearer in 2026. I think we will see, as I'd mentioned earlier, these evolutionary waves coming in that Dr. David Clements has talked about, and it's going to be awakening on a mass level. Many, many people suddenly coming to see the truth. I think a lot of truth will come out right through the year, particularly strong around February and March. And that those truth waves will create the awakening. And so people will go up in waves. People will awaken in waves to a greater sense of their own truth. And that will feed the revolutionary energy. And it doesn't have to be violent, shouting and on the street. It can be a revolution of love, just shifting to a place of energetic disengagement from the old world and engagement with people who are soul tribe, who are on the same wavelength as you, the same frequency as you, who have the same values as you. I think we are going to see a huge amount of disclosure in 2026 about our history, about who we truly are as humanity. And that's going to be amazing. I think there's going to be a lot of galactic disclosure. And one of the reasons I say that is the seed point for Uranus and Neptune, i.e. when was the last conjunction, was in 1993. And that's when Dr. Greer began his disclosure project. Well, this year, Uranus and Neptune coming to the kind of the next step, as it were, from that conjunction, which is the sextile. And that sextile is very close already, but will be exact in July. July is a real peak when that unique astrological configuration, that kind of mini triangle I've talked so much about, I'll put the link for the big picture below this video as well, that's when it takes its next step in terms of disclosure. So I think a lot to do with our star family coming to light. And the galactic disclosure, I think, again, is going to come in waves, but from May onwards, Uranus moves into Gemini in, as I've mentioned several times, April 26th this year, stays there till 2033. And that is about literally galactic Uranus, Gemini communication, channeling of galactics, galactic news, galactic connections of all kinds. It becomes conjunct to Sedna in late May. That's a kind of ignition point for our metamorphosis into this homo luminous, this more crystalline structure. Uranus is square to the nodal axis. It's our direction, our collective soul's path of growth, and Uranus is in aspect to it in June. That is another potential wave of awakening, but also galactic connection. So I think it's going to be an extraordinary year of exciting disclosures. I think the other thing as well is that there's been quite a lot of this already this year. It's going to be even more discovery of ancient cities, temples, civilization, some underwater, and a real discovery of our ancient wisdom, because, so often we've been told that we are the pinnacle of civilization currently. Well, I think that just simply isn't the case, because the more we discover these ancient civilizations and how advanced they were, I think we have to pay homage to that, but also remember and reconnect to that ancient wisdom. Look already at the discoveries that have been made under the pyramids in Giza. There's incredible devices that look as if they produce power and energy under the pyramids of the Giza Plateau that are very, very sophisticated. And I think we are going to discover an awful lot more under those pyramids that really are quite extensive, I think, quite extensive underground. And that is going to reconnect us to all that we knew as beings in that time. It's going to be so exciting. So we are also going to reconnect in this increased sensitivity to the elemental, not just our galactic family, but the elemental world, the tree beings, the fairies, the elves, the animal kingdom. And you can have a mantra of, I am a multidimensional being. I am a multidimensional being. Allow me to connect to all expressions of consciousness, living, loving consciousness in the world. I think we are also, and David Clements has talked very extensively and beautifully about this, that what we are going through is not just an evolution for humanity or even for Gaia, it's an evolution of the entire universe, And that is why, and this project is absolutely immense, his word, immense. So just understand the scale of what we are going through, what we are involved in right now, and how exciting that is. And really embrace it with every cell in your being, that this is a phenomenal opportunity beginning in 2026. Just the beginning, this is going to go on to infinity. This is a lifetime, and he has said this is a lifetime where we can truly move from being largely a third dimensional being into many higher dimensions than that, and truly evolve and have very different experiences to anything we've known in this lifetime and many lifetimes in the past. And yeah, this increased sense of telepathy will come in, of our healing ability, and yes, this sense of connecting to all living beings, this sense of oneness, I think will be really beautiful. I do think there will be continued. We've had a very active year with seismic activity. You may be aware, I think this will actually go up the scale, but already I think we are the 6th most seismically active year in 2025. I think that will be even more active in 2026. There's been a huge amount of volcanic activity across the world, some of it underwater. Currently, as I speak, Italy is very active, Mount Etna, etc. And there's an underwater volcanic system in Italy that is very, very little known, but that's becoming very active as well. Hawaii, a lot of volcanic activity has been right across the world. I think that is going to increase even more, because this is a symptom of Gaia going through her own rebirth and shedding many, many years of trauma. I think we are going to have a revolution in physics and how physics operates, a totally new understanding of our reality, as everything really being not only more fluid and more malleable, but a sense of magnetic resonance. That everything is just an expression, the planets, the people, every living thing is just an expression of magnetic resonance. We really are going to discover the harmony of the spheres that Pythagoras talked about. And we are going to discover a physics of consciousness in a much bigger way. This kind of coming together of science and spirituality, a physics of consciousness that we have never truly understood, at least in recent lifetimes. I think they were way ahead in ancient times, but in more recent times. So it's very interesting that we're going to discover that consciousness is primary as well. It always has been. We're going to really feel that everything comes from energy. Consciousness is primary everywhere. I've mentioned in other videos that this conjunction, this very important one-time conjunction between Saturn and Uranus, which happens every 36, 37 years, but not at 0 of Aries. It last happened at 0 of Aries, credit to Heather Ainsworth for discovering this in her research, was in 4361 BC, so almost 6,000 years ago. And that was really a time of Neolithic society. There was peace, there was no war. And that was really the beginning of societies, of societies being structured in some way, agricultural settlements. It was the beginning of early writing, of astrology, of shamanism. Sacred sites were being built then. There was a sense of divinity coming in. You know, this connection to the divine at that time. But it really was the birth of society, you know, in recorded history as we know it. So with this Saturn-Neptune conjunction happening again at 044 of Aries on the 20th of February exactly, what new society is being birthed right now that we as humanity are birthing? I think it's a much more galactic civilization and a much more loving civilization. I also think it's a much more peaceful civilization going forward, because if we're going to be of higher consciousness, you know, we're not going to have war and polarity and I'm right, you're wrong. The Neolithic times, as I understand them, were times of peace. There was no war. And it's very interesting that many of you are aware there's a trine between Uranus and Pluto right now that will become exact in July. It's really running right through 2025, 26, 2027, and then Uranus starts to move on. But the seed point for that was 1965-66, the exact conjunction of Uranus and Pluto. And those were the years, as I've mentioned before, of hippiedom, the summer of love, the Beatles music, All You Need Is Love. Do you remember, you know, you may have heard the Beatles music or lived through that time. It was anti-war, it was all about peace and love and coming together in community, growing food. And, you know, it was beautiful. It was incredibly rich creatively and culturally. This is now the blossoming of the seed point of that conjunction, 1965, 1966, together with what I've just been saying about the last Saturn-Neptune conjunction at Aries. So I think we have some real promise around going forwards into an age of peace. And once we reconnect to our galactic family, it'll seem like a kind of schoolyard fight to be arguing with our neighbours in the next country or halfway across the world. It'll just seem ridiculous. I think with that Uranus-Neptune sextile becoming exact, all of these are becoming exact in July. The trine between Pluto and Uranus, the sextiles between Neptune and Pluto and Neptune and Uranus. The Neptune-Uranus side will expose us to or help us to experience realities we've never experienced before or even thought existed. We are going to have the most incredible transcendent experiences that we have never, bliss experiences, a feeling of radiant presence that we can embody, that we're just unimaginable. Saturn-Neptune conjunction is about making real the dream. It's also about the birth of a new Aries, spiritual Neptune identity. A new, Aries is I am, Neptune entering. It actually enters on the 26th, 27th of January, but it becomes exact with Saturn on the 20th of February. The new spiritual identity. That's what's being birthed. And, how exciting is that? So just really embrace this. I think the role of water will be huge as we move forwards. Veda Austin has some, just beautiful, beautiful work with this. But I think we will understand the role of water as we being liquid crystals. And of course, we can't live without water. We're ingesting it all the time. I now bless all of the water I drink. I bless the shower. If I go swimming, I bless that water. Blessing the water will help it to become high frequency as we ingest it. And that can only help us too. But we're going to discover a lot more about water and the role of water in elevating our consciousness. We are going to shed identities and titles. They just won't matter. If you're a chief executive, had a title on your door and a big car, just will seem irrelevant. Because we're going to live much more as equals moving forwards in community. It just won't matter. I think money will matter less. Maybe in the short term we'll still be concerned about it. We've still got to pay the gas bill, the electricity bill, whatever. But longer term, it will seem less and less relevant because we'll be so competent at manifesting as we move forwards, and we'll be sharing, we'll be in collaboration, we'll be growing food together. We will value the simple. We will value the simple. People on that love timeline are going to love the earth, value the simple, yearn for the simple, versus the complexity of that more technological timeline. I think there will be new social media platforms, new internet. I've personally witnessed a new intranet, let's call it, for a community. Intranet just operates within the community, which is completely private. We will see a lot more of those because of censorship issues. And so those information networks will become very important. And I think in the short term, where there is more challenge to freedom of speech, if that still continues for a short time, more people will want to find freedom. This is Uranus in Gemini. Gemini is your day-to-day living. And it's very much to do with mobility anyway, ruled by Mercury. But Uranus moving in there at the end of April until 2033 will encourage more people to live off-grid, and also van life, camper van life will become a much bigger thing. People just on the move the whole time. It's already quite a significant movement. I think it will become much bigger. But as I say, this sense of stillness, regularly dropping into 0 point, dropping into your heart, creating coherence, being aware of that many times through the day, and creating this coherence, this physiological harmony from brain to heart and through your being, will help us to create more harmony with Gaia and all of her living creatures. Understanding this magnetic resonance and how everything operates in our reality will really help our manifesting ability as well. We're going to become masters of our understanding our frequency and commanding our frequencies. So this is a really big part of living from the inside out, not the outside in. The importance of our focus and attention in creating what we want, and ultimately realizing that everything in your reality comes from inside you. Everything. Leadership, if there is such a word, going forwards will be more visionary rather than dominating. It will be calm, kind, visionary, compassionate. It will be very different. It will simply be people emanating light, emanating a radiant presence, and people want to be around them. People wanting to be in that team. It will in no way be dictatorial or rules-based at all. A lot of innovators and pioneers coming forwards as well with new ideas and new technology. Integrity, humility, service to others, big part of leadership and a big part of entry into these higher dimensions. Things can move so fast. For some people, it may feel destabilizing. And there could be more mental health issues too. That's very much Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini. So please really commit to these very simple practices to keep you grounded. Have a daily grounding practice. Bare feet on the grass, breath work, Tai Chi, yoga, whatever it is. Have a daily practice to bring you back to that sense of absolute stability, energetic stability and coherence. And you may say, you always get the question, well, what about the wars and the poverty and the suffering and the starvation? Awful, absolute horrors. And I've always said our task is to raise our consciousness beyond that kind of suffering and polarity so it becomes unthinkable. And that's one of the main reasons I started up my free 15-minute meditations every night, 7 p.m. UK time. If you don't know about that, you just connect energetically. You go to my meditation page on my website, pamgregory.com. You can get the video of the original idea I had. 2 free 15-minute videos if you want a guided meditation, or literally just follow the suggestions I make in the video and off we go. Thousands of people are doing this, maybe tens of thousands, I don't know. There's no tech, there's no Zoom, but I know when people connect, they are having very powerful experiences of healing, of light, of heart connection. Beautiful. We are going to have much more latitude individually in our reality because we are going to become more multidimensional. So in the past, we've had, certainly, although that started to break down in the last few years, since about 2020, we've had a kind of broad consensus reality of how it works. We go to school, if we do well, we go to college. If that works well, we get a good job, we get a good salary, we buy a house, we meet a partner, we have children. No more. It's going to be, much more multidimensional than that. And so although we'll come together in community, families of frequency, we will have more individual expression. You'll be expressing your individual gifts more fully than you have ever done before. And this isn't, as we move forwards, about linear progression. It's about expanded awareness and expanded perception. It's not about a place or we don't go anywhere. It's within us, the veil drops. We expand our awareness, we expand our perception. And heart coherence is the way to do it. So I just keep thinking, we're welcoming in an ever-expanding consciousness of love that will serve you well. Now, I'd like to talk about some of the months and some of the, what I call astrological probability peaks, just broadly, because I think as we move through the year, this is going to become more and more abstract. Because it has to, as we shift from more of a dense 3D experience into experiencing higher dimensions, by definition, it's going to become more fluid, more malleable, more abstract. So that's another reason why I really wanted to do this just as themes rather than pinning details down month by month. It's going to be interesting to see what happens to astrology in general, isn't it? I don't have an answer for that right now. Okay, so even in January, we've got some powerful astrology. I've already filmed a video on the first half of January, and not only that, powerful full supermoon in Cancer, which is exactly on the sun of the US in the US chart. It's also conjunct the midheaven of the UK chart, set for 1st of January, 0 hours London, 1801. And that has a midheaven of 10 degrees of Cancer, so this full supermoon is conjunct that. It is also opposing the sun in that chart, which from memory I think is actually at 13 degrees of Capricorn, but both the midheaven and the sun in that UK chart are about leadership and government. So that full supermoon on the 3rd is going to shine a bright light on leadership in the US, but also in the UK. It's going to be interesting, isn't it? So be aware of that. Then we have that very powerful lineup of the personal planets. We have, I think Mercury is included in this, Venus, Mars, and the Sun in a direct opposition to Jupiter. That's a very powerful geometry with a lot of energetic pull to it, and that really runs from the 3rd to the 10th. It's most exact on the 9th, kind of 7th to the 9th of January. It may bring about some powerful event. It could be an Earth experience. We don't know. But I think something will happen round about, particularly the 7th to the 9th. Then we get into the second half of January. We've got an important new moon. I'm going to be doing a video on that in the next few days. That is on the 28th of Capricorn. That is conjunct the US Pluto in that US chart, 4th of July, 1776, 10 past 5 in the afternoon, Philadelphia. US Pluto is in the second house of the country's economy. So it's the value of the dollar. And Pluto rules the 12th house of enemies. Normally, it's generally it's secret enemies, but it's in the second house of the country's chart. So we may see some shifts in the dollar, something to do with finance at that time. Also values for the US, remember, second house is values. So let's see what unfolds, but within a few days of that, we have a whole series of conjunctions to Pluto. 20th of January, Venus conjuncts Pluto. Venus is value, currencies, money, banking. So that could suggest some volatility coming in stock markets, currencies. On the 22nd, we have Mercury conjunct Pluto. All of these are at 3 degrees of Aquarius. That's where Pluto sits. Aquarius is the sign of truth. We could see a great deal of truth coming to light. Whenever you get a Mercury-Pluto conjunction, particularly Pluto is secrets, but it's in the sign of Aquarius, powerful truths coming to light. Then we have the Sun conjunct Pluto on the 23rd, issues around power, freedom, human rights, civil rights, revolutionary energy. On the 27th, we have Mars conjunct Pluto. This is power. It can be brute force. 3 degrees of Aquarius is the ascendant of China. Just keep an eye on China, whether China is going to become more assertive at this time. Individually, Mars conjunct Pluto has tremendous focus and willpower to achieve a task. Tremendous. So we can use it well in that sense. So I'm going through these quickly because I'm obviously going to get into much more detail on a month-by-month basis. February is strong too. 17th of February, which is the beginning of the Chinese New Year, excuse me, and the beginning of the year of the Fire Horse, we have a solar eclipse, annular solar eclipse at 28 of Aquarius. This is conjunct the US moon, which I think is right on that. I think the US moon is at 27 of Aquarius, but it's right on it. The US moon is in the 3rd house of media and communication, and the moon rules the 8th house of investment in the country. So with a solar eclipse there, this brings up much more revolutionary energy on the part of the people. It could be, again, volatility to do with the strength of the dollar. That solar eclipse is exactly square to Uranus at the end of Taurus. Just watch tech stocks, tech and AI stocks at that time. There could be volatility around those. Within 3 days of that, we have this exact one-time Saturn-Neptune conjunction that's been almost 6,000 years since it happened at that time. I don't know when the next Saturn-Neptune conjunction at area of Aries is. It could be thousands of years in the future. Make the most of this. Make real the dream. New spiritual identity. March, we have 3i Atlas coming to its closest point in its flyby to Jupiter. It's then going to exit our solar system after that. That's on the 16th of March. That is when Jupiter is in Cancer. It's exalted in the sign of Cancer, and Jupiter is also at 15 degrees of Cancer. That is not only the sign that Jupiter is exalted in, it's the exact degree of all the 360 degrees in the zodiac that Jupiter is exalted in. And 3i Atlas is passing at its closest point to Jupiter on the 16th. I think that will be some kind of an activation. Jupiter is to do with our future vision. It's to do with our belief system. It's to do with inspiration. It's to do with wisdom, particularly ancient wisdom, Cancer. I think this could really activate a lot of ancient wisdom, ancient remembrance going way back. Our ancestral wisdom could be activated at that time. It's going to be very interesting to see. Then, of course, we have the Aries equinox. And in February, the Aquarius energy is super strong, which is about humanitarianism, revolution, rebellion. From March onwards, my goodness, the Aries energy becomes very strong. It's very strong, obviously, at the Aries equinox, but remember that we generally have the personal planets moving through Aries at this time of the year, of course, because that's the Aries season, but we don't normally have Saturn and Neptune co-present as well. So very strong Aries energy then, which is the energy of, that is the astrological new year in tropical Western astrology. The Aries equinox, 21st of March. And then by the time we get into the new moon in Aries in April, I think we have 8 orbiting bodies in Aries. We have the personal planets, we have Saturn, Neptune, we also have Chiron, we have the dwarf planets of Eris and Manwe. We have 8 orbiting bodies in Aries. That's extraordinary. So this is very much about new beginnings. I think we're going to have a huge wave of evolutionary energy at that time. There could well be in February, around 17th and the 20th, another big one in April. Does that mean Aries is linked to war? Could there be more war? Yeah, on that fear timeline, absolutely. How long will those things last, war? Well, as long as humanity keeps giving its focus and attention to them. We're co-creators here. You know, I've often had a phrase of starve out the scary, love in the good. As long as we keep giving our focus and attention to the drama, we are going to keep drip feeding life force to those things we don't want. So yeah, that could continue on that particular timeline. It doesn't have to be your timeline, but certainly there's a possibility of war continuing on that timeline, which you have, if you're on the love timeline, you may barely be aware of. You may have no direct personal experience of that. That isn't spiritual bypassing. It's really saying that, come on, guys, let's all get onto the love train. You know, the summer of love, where war just cannot exist. It dissolves. It can bring about more wildfires. Let's hope it doesn't. If we stay calm, send love and peace to the earth, that dampens down that possibility. But it is immensely creative. It's pioneering this surge of new beginnings. And you had a rehearsal for that in the middle months of last year, summer in the Northern Hemisphere. Whatever you were doing around June, July, August, as I mentioned before, that was your rehearsal for what you can more fully launch as we get into April. Big deal. Don't miss your opportunity. This is a one-time hit conjunction between Saturn and Neptune. 26th of April, Uranus moves into Gemini. And that is going to speed life up even more, and it ain't going to slow down any time after that. But we will get used to it as we shift into a high frequency. That will just become the new normal. In May, we have, and by the way, Mars is in Aries, very, very strong pioneering energy of initiation between the 9th of April and the 18th of May. May, Sun conjunct Uranus on the 22nd of April. That's a real ignition point as well. 22nd of May. 26th of May, Mars square Pluto. Very powerful as a force, can be a brute force. And again, think of China, because that's at 3 degrees of Taurus, 3 degrees of Aquarius for Pluto. We then have in late May Uranus conjunct Sedna, exactly, and that is an ignition point for our metamorphosis as we shift towards becoming more crystalline. June, we have that Uranus square to the nodal axis. I think that will be another wave of mass awakening and more evidence of our galactic family coming in. Uranus rules the galactics. Right at the end of June, 30th, Jupiter moves into Leo. This can expand our heart chakra, really expand this idea of heart-centered leadership from that point on. Not dominating leadership, heart-centered leadership. July is extraordinary. I mean, there's just so much in July. That unique mini triangle I've talked about that really runs 25, 26, 27 comes to its most exact point in July. It's a whole cascade of exact aspects. And so if you have anything that's exact at 4 degrees of the signs they're in, by then Pluto 4 degrees of Aquarius, Uranus 4 degrees of Gemini, Neptune, Saturn will have moved on by then, but Neptune 4 degrees of Aries. So if you have anything between 3 and 5 degrees, particularly of any sign, you will be receiving an aspect of that. So that's a real kind of high point in the year. Jupiter, as I say, has just entered Leo then. On the 4th of July, Mars conjuncts Uranus. That's a very combustible and exciting, really exciting kind of breakthrough energy. On the 27th, the nodes move into, 27th of July, the nodes move into Aquarius and Leo. So again, this shift towards egalitarianism, humanitarianism, power shifting to the people, and that reinforces a lot of the positive messages of Pluto at Aquarius. Chiron moves into Taurus. It's been a long time in Aries. Chiron moves into Taurus in July until September, really early October. And then next May it comes back into Taurus from May 27. This is going to bring about some wonderful healing technologies, healing our bodies and healing the earth. It may bring up more disruption in financial markets because Taurus is also linked to money, wealth, currencies, the financial markets. But it will really help the healing of our bodies and the healing of the earth. We have 2 eclipses in August, so that's very strong. The lunar eclipse that we have on the 28th is square to Uranus again. We have a lot of Uranian energy. Galactics, breakthrough, higher mind. September, we have we've got Mars square to Saturn on the 1st. That can be quite militaristic, but it can also give you a very disciplined energy to achieve. On the 26th of September, we have a full moon at 3 of Aries, conjunct Neptune, shining a light on your new spiritual identity. October, on the 3rd, Venus moves retrograde at 8 of Scorpio. And often when Venus moves retrograde, we have some drop in the stock market or just wealth in general, values of currencies, etc. And on the 16th, Pluto moves stationary direct at 3 of Aquarius. Again, Pluto's power archetype magnified on the ascendant of China. On the 19th of October, Uranus is square to Pluto at 3 degrees of Scorpio Aquarius. This could very well bring up some financial news, volatility, changes in currency values and stock markets, digital currencies coming to the fore. And they don't have to be centralized. They can be completely decentralized, microcurrencies even. November 16th, we have Mars conjunct Jupiter. This is very powerful, focused, stepping into heart-centered leadership, a surge of energy into that. 24th of November, we have a full moon, 2 degrees of Gemini conjunct Uranus. Again, Uranus in the picture. So, and then December the 4th, we have Mars square to Uranus, a very combustible and exciting aspect, which again, this may be some almost transport connection to, aviation connection to our galactic family. But through the year, because everything's becoming more valuable, it will get more and more abstract, but we will all be in a different place one way or another by the end of 2026. Frequency will be our currency. radiant presence will be our abundance. Just that sense of pure radiant presence. When you notice when a particular person steps into a room and they're just full of light and they lift the energy of the room, that will be abundance from that point on. So this has been a long video, a mega pamble, one might say. Be courageous, be bold, take a risk. We are being given extraordinary astrological and cosmic opportunities here that in many ways are just coming around once, like the Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 of Aries. That's not going to come around again at 0 of Aries for potentially thousands of years. Stand in your truth. Take more time away from the noise, the drama, the distractions. Drop into stillness. Have a daily practice. Ground. Do breath work. Particularly investigate, and there are many forms of breath work, yogic breath work, Wim Hof breath work, Buteyko breath work. There are many forms. I personally do Soma breath, which is a combination of yogic and Buteyko and Wim Hof. It's particularly powerful to hold on the exhale. You exhale all your breath and then hold. And don't go beyond your comfort zone with this. But it's that in between the breath which is most powerful. This is how the Indian yogis developed what were called their siddhis, their magical powers. And that's very simple to do at home and gradually build the length of time you can hold on the exhale. And you really start to feel the energy moving around your body. It can start a kind of Kundalini experience, which you can then monitor and control yourself depending on how much you do it and how far you push it. But this is going to be, I think, a year like no other. It's fair to say. Focus on the positive. Don't keep looking back to what's collapsing. Embrace your creativity. Embrace the opportunities that are coming in 2026 because they are extraordinary. As I say, this is the lifetime where we are actually able to move from being a 3D regular person into something much more high dimensional and multi-dimensional. So we have the potential to embody more light. That's happening already. And I really wish you a spectacular, all of you, a spectacular 2026. I do absolutely believe, and I believe it began, just the very tip of it began at the Capricorn solstice, that this is the beginning of a whole new episode of the evolution of humanity into the light body.